Garth, it's a real pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much for taking time to talk to me today.
My pleasure, John. No problem.
Well, Garth, this story is it's a new story that you've created, but in a way, it felt like I was experiencing a story that felt ancient and universal in so many ways. With this idea of trying to bring a character out of hiding or bring someone who's mysterious back into the light. How did you approach that ancient story with new eyes?
That's a really good point. It is ancient, isn't it? It is rooted in something we have all heard before, but it's something that felt very true, that people can be, the biggest stars, the people that have it all can be broken by something, that can retreat from that light. And certainly we know writers in the past that have, become reclusive. And I just felt like there was this wonderful combination, this sort of beautiful combination between the idea of this Clay Calloway guy having become a recluse because of grief, consumed with grief, and that music would be part of that healing. It always felt, and that's why it was like, well, if this was Bono, this would be perfect, because he's got that voice and that character, but those songs, they've always, they're not all of them, but so many of them resonate in a way that would bring me back. The audience would sing him back. And it was very much a kind of hand in hand with what that music could do in terms of its purpose in the movie and how that would be connected to the soul of this character, which sounds more scientific than the process of writing these things is more kind of messy, coffee, donuts, trying things out. But right now that I can distill it to that, those feelings, you're chasing those feelings. What's underneath that reason to hide? And how do you then deal with that? How do you pull that person back?
You mentioned, the reclusive nature that Clay, has. There's a lot of us right now that really relate to being reclusive.
Yes, me too.
What can we learn about ourselves, in this story, when it comes to drawing ourselves out of our own reclusive feelings?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I can give everyone listening or reading or whatever it is that what I'm saying, however it's delivered to the world, I don't know if I can give anyone a kind of perfect distillation of that. But certainly for me, I have found the last few years, I have realized what, that idea, that the cliche of you don't know what you've got till it's gone. I didn't realize how much I missed being in the room with people. My job is all about people. At the end of the day, it's all about an audience. Ideally in a cinema, feeling something together, sharing a feeling. But even the making of these films, I work with over 500 people on this project. And it's about that energy and that enthusiasm. And it's not just sharing information over Zoom. It's being in the room with them. I find a great joy in my work comes from just being with other artists and other people, all of us trying to make something together. And certainly socially, I found that those little olive branches, whether it's the smallest text message or the knock on the surprise visit, they have such profound resonance now, having been denied that for the last 2 years. I saw somebody the other day I haven't seen for 35 years. And the only reason we saw each other was because of this movie, but also because the last 2 years has made people think about what they've been missing. And I loved that he made the effort, because it was hard for him for all kinds of reasons to come back, but it was beautiful. And so I think it could be scary to reconnect. And I know it will be still for a while. I don't think we're out of the woods yet, but I think we should get out and try and reach out, whatever you feel comfortable, just tiptoeing to begin with. I think it's worth it to reconnect with each other.
Yeah. Garth, our audience is greatly comprised of creatives and storytellers themselves. Of course, many of us just fell in love with your work with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and seeing where your work has gone, and the way that you tell stories has really grown and expanded. How do you find working with characters that are animated is different as a storyteller and as a writer than working with characters that are flesh and blood?
Yeah, actors standing right in front of you.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's so different. It is so different. And I never realized I'd have so many opinions on where eyebrows go, or like, no, it's incredible what you suddenly realize you instinctively know, like, oh, and I've learned so much about how we communicate with our bodies, not just our words and not just our facial expressions, but our entire physiology, even our position in the room, how that informs, the way we communicate with each other through working with these amazing animators over here. So we have this incredibly playful kind of almost like a rehearsal style environment where we're trying things out. And I found that although it's different when you've got an actor, what they just did in front of you is done. You can see it instantly. What you're doing with animation is you're building that performance. So you build it over layers. It's not the same. You don't get the same lightning in a bottle kind of moment like, oh, that was it. But what you do get is this wonderfully rich experience of trying to create something that felt like it just happened. Like you just walked through the door. You just suddenly thought of something. And then you have to look at yourself and go, how do I do that? How do we do that? And so I found it quite profound, actually, in terms of understanding more about how powerful this communication tool is right here. Even if you're a koala with gigantic ears and an enormous nose, you still have this incredible ability to communicate. And I found that amazing. What a journey that's been, working that stuff out. Yeah.
In writing this story, did you imagine these characters as these animated characters you had worked with before in your head?
Yeah,
I
can't get it out of my head. That's the thing. It starts to become something in your head very quickly. And you're like, this is going to be great. In fact, if I'm really honest with you, I find the process of making this stuff very moving, because you start to think, I know how he feels now. And even though it's a family movie and one doesn't want to come across as pretentious, the fact is you're putting your heart and soul into this. So when you start to imagine what it's going to feel like for Calloway to walk out at the end of the movie, and you're writing that, you're actually physically writing that, which means you can see it. You've got to be able to see it to write it. So as you're seeing it, you're starting to feel those emotions, and you're like, oh, I have to hold on to this, because this is what the audience have to feel. If I don't feel it, if I'm not laughing, or if I'm not feeling what they're feeling at that stage, very little chance you guys are going to get it. So I find it exhausting in a nice way. I find it very moving. And yeah, they're all there at the beginning, trying to sort of tell you where to go and what they should do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You manage at the end to really use your storytelling, as you said, to move our hearts, to cause us to emotionally feel something. Do you know when you have that on the page that wow, this is going to touch the heart?
Yeah, well, I don't know for sure, but I know for sure it does on me. And I won't commit that. I won't go forwards until I feel it. And sometimes I could be wrong, and I'll be in the editorial room with some storyboards and realize, it's not quite doing what I felt. Why is that? You have to dig back into it and find out what it was you were feeling and why, and why that wasn't there in that moment on the storyboards. But I find it the whole process quite moving. It's really lovely when that happens. And there's also, because so much about what I do is communicating, not just the audience, but the next person to work with me, an animator, for instance. And I've got to infuse that artist with, it's not just information. It's not just like, he's got to come in and open the door. He's got to walk out and play guitar. It's like, why that moment has got to feel like the greatest moment of this guy's life. Like why we're behind him and not in front of him. Why we're this far away from him, not that close. Why we're not on a close up. Why we're right here, and why the arm has to come up to this height, not that height. Because you're going back. I'm back. You're saying I'm back. with your arm movement, and that's why the mix is very loud for that moment. And that's why the lighting people send a light stream down the corridor. And everyone has to understand not just the information of what's required, but what it's got to feel like. That's my job, is to then impart that to everybody working all these hundreds of people working in different departments.
Yeah. Garth, last question for you. What would you say to fellow storytellers who see your work and are impacted emotionally by what you've done, and say, wow, I want to do that one day. I want to be telling those kinds of stories. What advice would you give?
Oh, gosh. That feels like a profound responsibility now. But no, you're right to ask, because it is. I felt those things watching Steven Spielberg's movies, and and everything from Singing in the Rain to some like Billy Wilder movies. I felt that profound sense of like, oh gosh, one day I would love so much to do that. And I suppose that I can't say what people should do. I can only say what I did, which was I just hung on to that. And because I never fell out of love with the thing I was doing, it meant that even when it was hard, and I can tell you, it is not, I know I sound all like jolly right now. It is not easy. I think even children understand that. If what you're doing is rooted in a passion, then you've got a shot at making it. If it's an interest or an ambition that you think maybe you can make some money out of stuff, it's probably not going to work, or you could get lucky and it'll be fine. But I think if it's rooted in a passion, and that passion can drive your decisions, then I think you've got a good shot. And if you've got good friends, you need friends. I need a lot of friends to hold hands with on this journey. I would not be here on my own, for sure.
Garth, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, John. Thanks. It's been really nice to talk to you. Also, I couldn't help sneaking and look at your amazing Star Wars memorabilia. Oh boy, I was looking at that Darth Vader helmet up there. I was like, the 5-year-old in me was like going, give me that. This kid down my street, when that movie came out, had that mask, and he wouldn't let me. But one day he let me borrow it. I wouldn't take it off the whole day. I remember eating a sandwich by sticking up the neck and eating it, just because I couldn't bear the thought of taking it off until this kid took it back.
I love that.